Listen, they announced something. If we lived in a normal country, if we lived in a country that hadn't boiled its own brains with Brexit and Boris Johnson, he's in the news today for reasons that will surprise precisely nobody. If we hadn't boiled our own brains as a consequence of having the most ridiculous media in the world and a right-wing political class that don't know their backside from the elbow, then the most important thing facing Keir Starmer would be the NHS. It would be public spending in general and the NHS in particular. Getting the NHS back to roughly where it was in, I don't know, what year did David Cameron get elected as Prime Minister? And what year did the NHS record its highest ever levels of patient satisfaction? Anybody? Bueller? Yeah, you're right. It was the same year, 2010. NHS patient satisfaction levels were the highest they had ever been. And lo and behold, they're pretty low again now after 14 years of Tory rule. If we lived in a normal country that wasn't obsessing about dinghies and flags, then we would, and instead was obsessing about the health of our vulnerable and our elderly, and indeed everybody, then we would be focusing on the NHS like nothing else. And I suppose, to be fair, that the government tried to. Wes Streeting remains in post after this reshuffle and appears to be dedicated to effecting meaningful change on the NHS. And you'd have to be mad not to wish them well, wouldn't you? Or, I suppose, a Daily Mail columnist. You would have to be mad not to want the current government, whoever it is, to make the NHS better tomorrow than it was yesterday. Of course, if you are a Daily Mail columnist, then you probably argue that it could do so by spending less money on the NHS, or by reducing the number of doctors, or by encouraging them all to leave the country, and that somehow, in the magical alchemy of right-wing rhetoric, you come out with a more... Just like when Theresa May told the police officers that there was no relationship between cutting police numbers and rising crime. Imagine sitting in that room. She was Home Secretary at the time, but, of course, in post-Brexit Britain, she became Prime Minister. Imagine sitting in that room as a copper and being told by the Home Secretary that, no, we're going to cut quite a lot of you, but crime won't be affected at all. That's just insulting on every imaginable level. But because of the country that we live in, it doesn't get stuck on the front page every day for 2 months, and lo and behold, her career continues untouched, just as Boris Johnson's career will continue untouched today, despite disclosures in one newspaper that are, or would be, career-ending for any other politician. Which brings us back to Trump, of course. So, and listen, I am a gob on a stick. You know this. I'm not, I hope, a lazy gob on a stick. I like to change my mind about things. One of the favourite things for this programme, for me in the last few years, has been the discovery of an ability to recognise that I've got something wrong. The idea that you know more about a subject than I do, or that you have insights I don't have. It's a bit against the grain. You're supposed to, when you're in a job like this, just sort of thump the desk 4 times and put your fingers in your ears. And dismiss or mock affectionately anybody who dares to disagree with you. And I used to be a bit like that. I used to be quite good at it. But it's pointless, isn't it? As a very wise man once said, there is no point having a mind if you never change it. So I stress, I could have got this completely wrong. And I suffer from a little bit of, what would you call it? It's sort of if it's your job, right, to do something, and you are moderately successful at your job, or senior, let's say, you are quite senior in your job, and you say to me that in this field in which you work, X is true, and I kind of think you probably know more about this than I do. So I might look at something that's very much in your field and think that's bonkers, but it's your field. So is this just respect? Is this just a sort of respect for seniority, or respect for experience and knowledge? It's your field. Therefore, I think you probably know a bit more about it than I do. So I look at Matthew Taylor, the chief executive of the NHS Confederation, who I met a couple of times back in the day, very thoughtful bloke. And he says league tables, when thoughtfully designed and effectively implemented, can be a valuable tool for fostering healthy competition and enhancing local accountability. Well, I'll have a bit of that, please. However, he adds, they must not become instruments of blame, at which point I kind of go, well, look, you're the expert, you're the one with the seniority, you're the one with the experience, but how on earth How on earth can they not become instruments of blame? League tables for hospitals. The bottom 5 acute trusts have been published today, and I cannot see how this improves anybody's life. If you work in that hospital, you're receiving a message that you are a lazy, good-for-nothing wrong'un. If you've got an appointment in that hospital, if you've got an operation booked in that hospital, you are now considerably more nervous about it than you were yesterday. If you've got a loved one or a family member in that hospital, I'm almost reluctant to tell you which hospitals these are. One colleague suggested you'd know. You know, if you live in a certain area and the hospital has a terrible reputation, you're going to know about it. But to be honest with you, it depends on how much of a relationship you have with the NHS. You know, I sadly, for a variety of reasons, had a lot to do with the NHS in recent years at almost every generational level. And my abiding thought, when I come out of an NHS hospital, my abiding thought is gratitude. Even if we've had a suboptimal experience. I don't know, again, maybe that's my sort of innate forelock tugging coming to the front. I kind of find myself thinking, thank God you're here, because the alternative would be unbearable, even if we've been kept waiting for a long time. Last time I was in there personally, when I came off my bike and cut my head open. And you sort of, someone stitches you up, someone pushes you through the MRI. There's a lot of sitting around and stuff, but goodness me, the level of care that we got was extraordinary. How would I have felt if I'd known that the hospital I was going to was currently judged to be in the bottom 5 in the entire country? Imagine being in the back of an ambulance. Where are you taking me? Oh, I'm taking you to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in King's Lynn. Okay, I'll just Google. Oh my God, no! Turn left! I don't want to go there, I want to go there! Listen, the phone lines will be open. Well, they're open now. I haven't asked you a question yet. How can this be a good idea? Listen, don't answer it from the point of view of the good ones. You're on your way to the Northumbria Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust, and you're laughing because it's the best acute trust in the country. Or Imperial College Healthcare, or they're almost all in the southeast, so well done, Northumbria. So you're on your way there, and you're thinking, well, this is great, this is fantastic. But you're on your way to the ones that are at the bottom of the list, and you're thinking, hang on a minute, can I go somewhere else, please? So I don't get it. I don't really understand what Matthew Taylor saying that they can be a valuable tool for fostering healthy competition and enhancing local accountability. But that bit of the conversation is going to be because I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't really understand the concept of local competition in the context of hospitals. You do, so tell me what you mean. 0345 6060 973. Number 2, of course, becomes the question of how on earth you avoid the league table becoming an instrument of blame. And question number 3 is how you feel if you are in that profession. How does it feel? So I used to love league tables because they were only really done on exams. Do you remember at school you'd sometimes have the league table that was put together by your performance throughout the year, and I'd be very much a mid-table kind of team. And then you'd have the league table that was put together according to the end-of-year exams, in which case I'd be very near the top. Never quite at the top, but quite much nearer the top than I was. And then they'd combine the two, and you managed to cancel out being quite lazy all year by having done quite well in an exam. So I used to think I liked league tables, and I was such a muppet, for want of a better word, that I thought because that suits me, that's what the system should be. That's a bit like what I meant 4 minutes ago when I said you do a job like this, traditionally you're supposed to just lay down the odds, thump the desk a few times and stick your fingers in your ears and go la 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 when people explain with evidence and insight why you're wrong. I realised about 10 years ago that a system that works for me is not necessarily the best system for everybody. And in fact, in a utilitarian universe, the system that works for the greater good is the system that works for the greater number. So if most people actually manage to work quite hard all year, the league table at the end of the year shouldn't give a bias to the people who've been faffing around all year but managed to produce the goods in an exam. That is objectively and demonstrably unfair. But in my Muppet years, I would have argued furiously that that's how all the systems should be, because those are the systems that suit me. I say Muppet, you might be thinking Michael Gove. To be fair, they're kind of interchangeable. But that seemed to inform an awful lot of Michael Gove. goes education policy. Oh, well, when I was at school, this suited me down to the ground. Therefore, I should introduce it for the entire country and spread it all over the place. And that's because I like league tables, or I liked past tense league tables. I don't know what happened to my colleagues at LBC when I became the most popular presenter on this station, but do you think they decided to up their game? Do you think it made them feel good? It was great for me because I'm numero uno, but for everybody else, it's a negative, right? It's, oh my God, especially if you're supposed to be number one because you present, I don't know, the breakfast show. It must be absolutely shocking to be sitting there thinking, this is flying in the face of everything that is normal in our industry, and therefore, selflessly, I would say league tables are a bad idea because they might deliver great news to one person, but it's appalling for everybody else. It stinks. You wouldn't want to be number 2 or number 3 or number 4. You should be encouraging a team attitude, a team atmosphere. So the whole NHS should be playing on the same team. Tell me I'm wrong. Explain to me why league tables for NHS trusts are a good idea. 0345 6060973. Or tell me why I'm right and what they're missing. How can anybody like this? How can anybody think, oh yeah, my mum's going to hospital tomorrow. Where are they in the charts? Yeah, they're not even in the top 40. My mum's going to hospital tomorrow. Where is she in the league tables? She's, yeah, we're hoping she doesn't find out. We've taken her phone off her because we don't want her to Google where she is in the league table in case she realises that it's got the worst reputation in the entire country. And God bless the people going to work today at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital Kings Lynn NHS Foundation Trust. Breath. God bless you all, seriously. Imagine going to work today in the NHS, already battered by 14 years of austerity, by assaults upon your job satisfaction. Staffing levels are at historic lows. Your beloved colleagues have been chased out of the country by Nigel Farage and his Brexit buffoons. And now, those of you left, those of you still trying to keep a ship afloat in Kings Lynn, are opening up your newspaper this morning or turning on your radio to discover that you work in the worst hospital in the country. Who does that help?